Hello everyone, Kilted Warrior here. I hope you're having a lovely day, and I invite you to join me as we delve into Mass Effect 1 Legendary Edition.
Commander Shepard, step forward. It is the decision of the Council that you be granted all the powers and privileges of the Special Tactics and Reconnaissance Branch of the Citadel.
Spectres are not trained, but chosen. Individuals forged in the fire of service and battle, those whose actions elevate them above the rank and file.
Spectres are an ideal, a symbol, the embodiment of courage, determination, and self-reliance. They are the right hand of the Council, instruments of our will.
Spectres bear a great burden. They are protectors of galactic peace, both our first and last line of defense. The safety of the galaxy is theirs to uphold.
You are the first human Spectre, Commander. This is a great accomplishment for you and your entire species.
Mass Effect was a game developed by Bioware and released in 2007, and marked the developer's second foray into creating their own intellectual property, after Jade Empire, which, though well received, failed to get wider recognition, despite the previous success found in games such as Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which were licensed games, of course. So there was a risk that they might repeat Jade Empire's reception. Yet with Mass Effect, it ended up being both a critical and financial success at the time. This is a time when Electronic Arts, who had acquired Bioware, was looking to get new IPs to bring to its portfolio, and spawned the now iconic sci-fi franchise that, despite its problems, has maintained financial success and is looking towards another release in the coming years. Without the original Mass Effect, none of this would have been possible, and in this video I will delve into many of the elements that I feel solidified this sci-fi game series and this game to many RPG fans who follow it to this day. I will discuss its focus on more involved combat systems, a novel at the time conversation system, and the plethora of characters and world building elements that made its story a classic. For context, I originally played this game when it released to PC, and have played every Mass Effect game since. Yet in this case I covered the Legendary Edition version of the game with 3 different playthroughs this time round, so note, even though I will reference what I remember about the original release in terms of graphics, gameplay and other changes that are now changed within the Legendary Edition. I did not play the original version for this video, as my copy was from a time when EA Electronic Arts only allowed for free installs of a game per purchased copy, and I feel it is also only fair to look at this remaster on its own merits, as it will be a new experience to new players who have not played Mass Effect before. That said, with no further ado, sit back, relax, and let's delve into this classic game.
But I'd make a great Spectre. I'd be right there with you, showing the Council what humanity is capable of. I want to be with you, fighting the good fight like you did on Elysium during the Skillian Blitz.
I believe you, Conrad. But there's another fight that needs you.
What? I don't understand.
You know what keeps me going out here? Knowing that people back home are keeping humanity strong.
You're right. I just got so caught up in all of it. I wanted to help.
When considering Mass Effect 1's combat and gameplay, it was, at the time, when I originally played it, quite a shift from more traditional systems that Bioware had previously used in the likes of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and then KOTOR. Those games' systems that what we would now call CRPG fans would be very familiar with at that time. Though Bioware had developed prior to Mass Effect 1 the Jade Empire game, which was a third-person action RPG, though lacking the success at reaching a wider audience, it was and is a cult classic which I remember fondly. Yet Mass Effect was Bioware's push into a new kind of role-playing game, and I feel it's fair to say it was novel as far as role-playing games go. You had a third-person over-the-shoulder shooter which, at the time, was only beginning to become a popular choice thanks to games such as Gears of War. Yet, at the same time, you had a cinematic conversation and storytelling game that for me seemed to be the future of RPGs. Of course, it ended up as its own subgenre effectively, and though it had made a mark on future RPGs, it nevertheless did not, as I thought at the time, come to dominate the genre. RPGs really are too varied to have any claim of such a thing. Regarding Bioware's RPGs at the time, I personally had only played KOTOR, and as for Jade Empire, which did come out before Mass Effect 1, I only had played that after originally playing Mass Effect 1. So Mass Effect was a fresh experience with hints of its heritage in it, such as its character progression systems and its use of the also popular at the time morality systems. Yet it was a clunky experience compared to other action games of the time, and to me, the action was not what Mass Effect needed to set itself apart, as long as it was competent enough. It would be the story and progression that was the real meat of the gameplay. As anyone who enjoys any RPGs knows, they have as much time spent conversing with NPCs as fighting with them. For me, Mass Effect 1's gameplay is built on a loop that involves exploring hubs to find or initiate conversations, receive objectives and learn about the world from NPCs you find, travel to destinations which involve being on foot or using the Mako, combat sections, dialogue which either resolves the quest or leads to a climax, then quest complete, which is then followed by some form of debrief or a dialogue thanking Shepard. At this point you've usually leveled up and have loot to sell, and then you buy equipment, so character progression, and then you rinse and repeat. Here is an example of this loop.
Spectre, I have a business proposition for you.
I've got plenty to do already.
Of course you do, but this would be easy work for you and I pay extremely well.
If they're as bad as you say they are, they need to be dealt with.
Excellent. Here are the coordinates. When these men are dead, I will wait for you at the third set of coordinates. Goodbye, Commander. It's been a pleasure to meet you.
In that case, you're free to go. But if I find you in any slavery operations, I will not hesitate to cut you out.
You won't. This organization can be quite profitable without trafficking in slaves or drugs. Here's your payment. I'm certain that you'll find it more than adequate. Now, if you'll excuse me, my men become nervous in the presence of law enforcement agents. Goodbye, Shepard.
All in all, it works well as a system, and the series will more or less keep to this system on some level, though obviously the Mako part is not applicable later on in the games. Speaking of everyone's favourite toy car with boosters strapped to it, the Mako wants the stuff of nightmares, and I can't express enough how much I disliked the Mako when I originally played this game way back when. My god, the handling, just why? Why? You see, I'm not joking about the toy car metaphor. When you drive this thing around, it is like a child with a toy car flinging it about a room. It's ridiculous. Anyway, with Legendary Edition, it is passable, and it is certainly easier to control, and it has a ridiculous amount of shielding. Like, I played through the game in both normal and then on hardcore difficulty. There are basically no cases where the Mako can't just sit there and snipe everything. Most enemies can't even down its shields when you're stationary. The only exceptions I found were snipers on hardcore difficulty, which are rare, and they melt the poor thing so quickly. And the other case is one fresher mob boss, which ignores the shields as I understand. The basic turrets you constantly face are useless against the Mako, so the Mako sections are easy enough. You just need to climb mountains like a Skyrim horse and then just snipe the helpless turrets. which ends up getting old pretty fast. That said, I do love Mako Rocket League. As far as character progression systems, a core element of any RPG, Mass Effect 1 has 6 classes which Shepard can choose from. And before I continue, can I just say what a cool character creation set of screens this game has? I love the idea of the Alliance military database, and the idea that it implies that Anderson, Hackett and Udina, all important characters, were analysing Shepard's military profile before the opening scene and having their commentary changed depending on what choices you made in the character creation. I think is really cool. Anyway, the game ultimately has 3 pure classes in the form of the Adept, which uses biotics and, well, it's basically a Jedi. I mean, it's a Jedi, enough said. Then you have the Soldier, which acts like a Master of Arms but with Wolverine's healing factor. And then you have the Engineer, which basically points at things and makes them go boom, or makes Geth turn against their robot friends. Then you have 3 hybrids that mix and match the above with some caveats. Infiltrator is basically a sniper who mixes in some of the engineer style abilities to disrupt weapons and shields. The Vanguard, which can't make up its mind if it's a Jedi or a Space Marine. And finally the Sentinel, which is literally the most jack of all trades imaginable, with both engineering and biotic skills. For my 3 core playthroughs in preparation for this video, I played an Infiltrator on normal, then an Engineer on hardcore, and then finally a Soldier on veteran, while back in the day I had played the Adept and the Sentinel extensively. That said, the classes in this game share several abilities and usually boil down to do they have biotics available, which is completely overpowered. And do they unlock medium or heavy armor, and also what weapons do they prefer to use? Hence, as far as equipment's concerned, only armor type is locked behind certain classes, and weapons are all available to Shepard from the start. It's just whether or not Shepard will be good with those weapons depends on the class. So even though the Infiltrator is good with a sniper rifle, the shotgun Infiltrator is still possible here, though admittedly it's not as fun as in subsequent games. Any Infiltrator fans will know what I'm talking about here. The only real caveats to be aware of here are that with the classes, targeted abilities, like with biotics and tech or otherwise, can have some weird targeting issues, and in the case of my Engineer, I ended up getting better success by targeting the ground beneath enemies, though obviously this doesn't work with biotics except for Singularity. and if you upgrade the area of effect of other biotic abilities. That said, biotics is already completely broken, so we'll talk about that later. Regardless, with your class locked in, progression then is simply leveling by getting XP for killing enemies, finishing missions, and hacking containers. And yes, if you want to get to high levels for importing into the second game, hacking will be essential. It's annoying, it's tedious, but if you do this, you can effectively break the game's economy as well. I mean, I easily maxed out my money before Virmire by just selling tons of loot. It is because of this that the equipment progression falls into the trap that many RPGs have, where you can get gear well ahead of the content you're facing, i.e. like Spectre gears earlier than maybe anticipated. The problem being my engineer, for example, with Spectre light armor had far better armor than Rex's heavy armors at the same time. So you shouldn't be put off by classes that only use light armor, as it can be really strong, and in the mid game I basically didn't need cover even on hardcore difficulty. Then again, cover is for the weak. Also, Shepard can easily get the most powerful Omni tool upgrade in the game quite early on by doing the Bringing the Sky Down mission if you pass a simple charm intimidation check. Also, the game has general sort of skills that most classes get, like decryption for hacking things, first aid, charm and intimidate. That is, with Charm and Intimidate, they allow you to do the blue-red sort of Paragon Renegade answers in conversations, which are essential, so it is an essential skill. While hacking is also essential for at least one character, as it will harm your ability to accrue XP and get loot quite heavily if you don't at least bother with it. Some areas have far too many containers, I've found. Then we have first aid, not essential, but my issue is that the game doesn't actually tell you how it works, or at least doesn't really explain it well. It works across the entire squad from what I understand, so when you give first aid to a companion, it's not that they get a skill for it or anything to activate, it's that your ability, which you can see it on the UI as I show here, simply becomes stronger. It's not actually obvious that you should even click it, which is a bit silly. And it's different from another skill which Shepard gets, Unity, which you get early on in the game, but they just don't explain this. Like, I wasn't sure what the point was, because I had the first aid skill and I was like, because I hadn't played this in so long, I forgot that your companions don't get to activate it. So yeah, basically only Shepard actually uses Medigel, which are medkits obviously, and the amount healed is based on the whole squad's combined bonus to first aid and medicine in the case of cooldown for it. It's odd, it's not explained well, but it is a minor thing. That said, I do like the progression systems overall in this game. It's just there are some weird quirks and imbalances, which I will note again when I delve into the sequel's changes to this, as it seems that some of this criticism was on the minds of the developers when they created that game.
I get the feeling you're not too fond of humans.
No, I just don't trust your kind. Not yet. You humans are eager to take all the power you can get, and you're being given a lot. If the Council wants to make humanity their new favorite pet, that's their business. But I don't have to like it.
The Council treats us like second-class citizens. We have to fight for everything we get.
Good. Then fight for it. But don't expect the rest of us to just sit back and let you take it.
Mass Effect 1 is set in a sci-fi universe that begins with humanity as the newcomer to the Galactic stage. Even before Shepard is selected for the all-important command that will define the course of events through the entire series, the backdrop is a humanity that has made first contact 30 years prior in the form of a short but important first contact war with a race called the Turians. When humanity first activated a dormant mass relay in our own sol system, leading to the occupation of a colony known as Shanxi. But ultimately it ended up with humanity making peace and joining the Galactic community. Following that, humanity then faced off against the Batarians and another group in the Galactic community at the time in a proxy war of sorts that culminated with the Batarian-backed pirates and mercenaries, slavers, attempting to take a colony known as Elysium in the so-called Skyllian Blitz, where humanity established the alliance with a small but effective navy as a major player, leading to not a few races being worried about the upstart humans.
They instigated a proxy war in the Verge by funneling money and weapons to criminal organizations, urging them to strike at human colonies. Hostilities peaked with the Skyllian Blitz of 2176, an attack on the human capital of Elysium by Batarian-funded pirates and slavers. In 2178, the Alliance retaliated with a crushing assault on the moon of Torfin, long used as a staging base by Batarian-backed criminals. In the aftermath, the Batarians retreated into their own systems and are now rarely seen in Citadel space.
Well, what about Shepard? She's a spacer, lived aboard starships most of her life.
Military service runs in the family. Both his parents were in the Navy.
He proved himself during the Blitz. Held off enemy forces on the ground until reinforcements arrived.
She's the only reason Elysium is still standing.
We can't question her courage.
Humanity needs a hero, and Shepard's the best we've got.
I'll make the call.
Enter Commander Shepard, an Alliance Marine and Special Forces member who has caught the attention of their superiors based on the chosen origin in the character creation, which is the basis of the first framing shot of Shepard staring out into space. The interesting part about the origins and service record is that they can refer quite heavily to the historical events I mentioned, such as the war hero Shepard being the hero of the Skyllian Blitz, and ruthless Shepard having led a brutal retaliation against the Batarians, leading Shepard to get the title of the so-called Butcher of Torfin. And sorry, Butcher of Blaviking, but let's just say Shepard killed a lot more than 7 people to gain the Butcher moniker. Also, at the same time, there's another nice touch of this sort where the colony of Mindwar lore links both heavily into the colonist background, with the fact that it is where your character was born, but also with other origins it still references it, and there are other characters that you will meet in those backgrounds who are linked to those events. Just all in all, I love that the backgrounds, both the sort of professional side with being a war hero or ruthless or whatever, and your actual sort of birth origins gets referenced a little bit in this game, and I do like that, as it does help immensely with the world building aspect. Nevertheless, with a reputation of fear, resolve, or heroism behind them, Shepard finds themselves under the command of Captain Anderson on a routine mission that clearly is anything but, with a Spectre, another very important part of the world building, and what is unique to Mass Effect, being a dead giveaway to the crew and Shepard immediately that there's more to this. That is, the Spectres are
shadow organization with a mandate to preserve and protect galactic stability.
Protect it at any cost. Don't forget that part. Spectres operate above the law.
Why don't we have any of our own people in there?
Spectres usually come from the Council races, like the Turians. We've been trying to get a human accepted into their ranks for years now. So far, it hasn't happened.
Hey, Commander, you'd make a good Spectre. You're a war hero, right? Held off an entire enemy fleet during the Blitz single-handed? That's the kind of talent the Spectres are looking for.
This is all just wild speculation. The Spectres aren't interested in recruiting humans, no matter how capable.
How do you control agents with unlimited power?
I suppose the Council could revoke the Spectre status of an agent who got out of hand. At that point, Citadel Security Services would take over.
Those C-Sec grunts wouldn't stand a chance. The Spectres were 20 ordinary soldiers. The Spectres police themselves. An agent goes rogue, they send another agent to take him down. That's Spectre justice.
The Corporal's confusing romantic legends with reality, Commander.
That is, this first mission also introduces the main antagonist for this story, as well as set up many of the core plot threads that I will discuss in the story spoiler section. That is, the core story, without spoilers, is a classic sci-fi tale that follows a ship captain and several companions with their own stories, assisting Shepard in the discovery of just exactly what the villain is after, and how exactly to stop them. It may seem standard fare for RPGs and sci-fi at first, but the specifics and the phenomenal world building to me are what have set this apart from the crowd and have made this such a iconic series. The crux being that the story, companions, and universe come together to form one of the most compelling sci-fi settings to date. Speaking of world building, it would be a crime not to mention this game's Codex, which you can find in the game's pause menu. It is a brilliant piece of world building as it involves voiced entries about various concepts, organizations, and species, as well as the technology that is central to understanding both this game's plot and the universe at large. It also includes more precise, unvoiced secondary entries that can delve further into the expanded lore of Mass Effect, and they are a great way to look up a variety of topics you would like to know more about, and it just so happens that they're also neatly organised in quite a helpful manner. What I also love about these is that they can actually change slightly throughout the games as various events, including Shepard's actions and decisions, are mentioned, and also the Codex has the both loved and hated unreliable narrator, which any fans of Elder Scrolls will be aware of, as even in this game there are entries that can be seen and seem correct from the perspective of the general galactic and human perspective that actually turn out to be false as the story reveals more. And it is a great thing, and I think every game should have this sort of thing, as it breathes life into a fictional universe and makes it feel authentic, as in our own world there are many perspectives and a lot of the time they can be proven to be false. That is, you must consider who is telling you the information and why they are saying it, and if they possibly might not have all the bits of information.
Alien race. The Systems Alliance is an independent supranational government representing the interests of humanity as a whole. The Alliance is responsible for the governance and defense of all extrasolar colonies and stations. The Alliance grew out of the various national space programs as a matter of practicality. Sol's planets had been explored and exploited through piecemeal national efforts. The expense of colonizing entire new solar systems could not be met by any one country. With humans knowing that alien contact was inevitable, there was enough political will to jointly fund an international effort. Still, the Alliance was often disregarded by those on Earth until the First Contact War. While the national governments dithered and bickered over who should lead the effort to liberate Shanxi, the Alliance fleet struck decisively. Post-war public approval gave the Alliance the credibility to establish its own parliament and become the galactic face of humanity.
And we need to talk about your crew, Commander. Krogan? Asari? Turians? What are you thinking, Commander? You can't allow alien nationals free access to Alliance equipment.
I'm Normandy's commanding officer. The regs state I have the authority to say who does and doesn't come aboard. If you disagree, send a complaint up the chain of command.
Between Saren and the Geth, we have enough enemies out here. Treating other species with suspicion and distrust won't win hearts and minds.
Whether you call them followers, companions, or squaddies, they are an essential part of Bioware games and a staple of much of the role-playing games genre for decades, and Mass Effect 1 continues this tradition of not only having engaging companions for tactical gameplay purposes, but more importantly, I feel, for Mass Effect as world building and storytelling devices. To explain this and why I think it is an important part of the Mass Effect series, I will touch on each of the 6 companions we meet in Mass Effect 1 and discuss their purpose and overall how effective I think they have been portrayed in the game. And just a heads up, this section will avoid any major spoilers for those characters. I will discuss the spoilers related to them in the story spoiler section. Kaidan Alenko is the first companion you start with and is the first of 2 representatives of the Alliance, or Human Armed Forces. Kaidan functions as a more reserved and by-the-numbers kind of companion that generally stays formal with regards to military conduct, even when you speak to him on the ship. Over time, you garner his trust, which leads you to hear about his experiences training as a biotic. That is, he is the entry point in the series for understanding biotics in Mass Effect, and goes on to explain that it is difficult, mentally taxing, and the reality that biotics are not a natural phenomena among humans, and actually involve very suspect exposure to Element Zero, a key part of the series, which can give people biotic abilities with some training and a secondary exposure, as he puts it. That said, he also mentions that it is just as likely to cause brain damage or insanity, though he luckily gets away with just migraines. All in all, though I'm not a huge fan of Kaidan myself, as he can come across as a bit generic, he is a good starting point for the biotics side of Mass Effect in its world building, and nevertheless shows great integrity at times. Ashley Williams is the second companion you pick up during the first mission, and like Kaidan is meant to give another perspective on the Alliance military, of which Commander Shepard is a part of. Ashley Williams is a no-nonsense professional soldier who comes from a long line of Alliance Marines in her family, of which she will expand upon with further conversations. She also reflects the feeling shared by many humans, both on your crew but also any humans you meet, that humanity should be more isolationist in its dealings with alien races, though falling short of outright bigotry in this case. Ashley, for her part, in time does do a good job of explaining the anxiety many humans feel around aliens, as, remember, humanity made first contact just 30 years prior, and that was started with the occupation of a human colony. With further conversations, particularly with Paragon aligned Shepard, Ashley Williams will reconcile her belligerent attitude towards aliens to a degree, as you do go on to discuss her grandfather, whose story I won't spoil here, but it goes a long way to showing why she holds the opinions she does towards aliens, and ends up showing a great deal of character growth on her part. At the same time, she has some interesting discussions with Shepard about military family life, which Spacer origin Shepard relates to them quite well, and is also one of the few characters I recall that Shepard meets who is openly religious, leading to further interesting discussions and world building regarding religion in this sci-fi universe. That said, her dialogue tree's design makes it incredibly easy to accidentally romance her. My first playthrough this time round, I accidentally romanced her even though I intended not to romance anyone this playthrough. If anything, I found it quite amusing because from what the dialogue implied, it was just being nice. It wasn't flirtatious in any way, but there we are. I got quite the surprise when suddenly they decided to kiss in a scene, and I was like, what? I don't... That said, personally, I would say I prefer Ashley to Kaidan, as she doesn't fall into the being solely defined by one aspect of their character trap, as Kaidan is exclusively based on being a biotic, while with Ashley she does show more character growth, and you have the mixture of the family backstory, the views on religion and alien species, as well as just simply sharing Shepard's dislike of Udina.
There are serious political implications here, Shepard. Humanity's made great gains thanks to you, but now you're becoming more trouble than you're worth.
You bastard! You're selling us out!
Garrus Vicarian is an ex-Turian military serviceman turned galactic cop working for Citadel security. He meets Shepard early on when you reach the Citadel. Frustrated by bureaucracy and politicians standing in the way of his investigation into the plot's main villain, Saren, he decides to join Shepard and acts as a loose cannon sort of character. It is clear he's meant to play into the Renegade motif of this game, though also being able to show introspection on his part regarding his past and present actions, and also how he and Shepard conduct themselves in achieving their objectives throughout this game. That is, Garrus allows for discussion of several aspects of this game and its story. First, he gives context and grounding to the Paragon Renegade morality system, with his discussions on Shepard's actions as a Spectre being a focal point. Second, he gives insight into the Council as a galactic institution, discussing his time as a CSEC officer, and also discussing his frustration with what he sees as systems of red tape protecting the corrupt officials and allowing criminals to walk freely, with this sentiment being particularly relevant during his companion's specific quest where he seeks your assistance in dealing with an escaped fugitive that slipped the net during his time at CSEC. Interesting also is that though other alien companions talk a lot about their own culture and species, I do appreciate that Garrus only occasionally mentions anything about Turians, therefore allowing his interactions to focus solely on the more galactic-wide concerns, such as with the Spectres and concepts of acceptable conduct. It should also be noted that Garrus's perspective will shift depending on Shepard's conversations and alignment choices, allowing Garrus, like Ashley Williams, to experience character growth. That said, there's a reason Garrus became a staple of the Mass Effect series, and it can be seen why here, as this game does act as an origins of his substantial character arc.
You're kidding, right? Why would anyone want Krogan testicles?
Some Krogan believe that testicle transplants can increase their virility, counteract the effects of the genophage. It doesn't work, but that doesn't stop them from buying. They'll pay up to 10,000 credits each. That's 40,000 for a full set. Somebody's making a killing out there.
Erdnot Rex is a dour Krogan mercenary who meets Shepard while on a contract to kill a criminal organization leader on the Citadel, known as Fist, and it brings him into Shepard's orbit. Yet being a mercenary is simply the starting point for Rex, as he is the gateway to discussions about the Krogan race, as a race once hailed as heroes, then villains, and finally slowly dying as a scattered and declining race. Despite Shepard's apparent ignorance of Krogan at first, Rex, who may be a warrior through and through, shows a great deal of wisdom in his discussions with Shepard, and goes on to effectively explain the Krogan's self-fulfilling prophecy conundrum, where they are constantly faced with the reality of their own destruction, yet refuse to change it because of their own behaviour, and how they view themselves. Hence, he starts a series of long discussions on whether we are to define ourselves by attributed nature, or if different circumstances could offer the hope of change. Ultimately, Rex reveals more about his family's complex past, and goes from feeling hopelessness about the Krogan's future and a rejection of his people, to a renewed sense of worth, not just for himself, but for his people. With all that said, I do feel Rex makes for a great world-building character, as well as just being generally interesting and making some hilarious comments as the game goes on. Hence, he is quite balanced in that regard.
How can you fight your own people, Rex? There aren't that many of you left.
Anyone who fights us is either stupid or on Saren's payroll. Killing the latter is business. Killing the former is a favor to the universe.
For the second to last companion, Tali is a Quarian engineer and functions as a member of not only an outcast race like the Krogan with Rex, but also her society is the most alien to other races at large. That said, what is interesting about Tali's discussions about the Quarians is, as far as Shepard, particularly Spacer Shepard, is concerned, they understand what life only in spaceships is like, and forms a bridge between Tali, the Quarians, and the rest of Shepard's crew, who usually have little in common with Quarians. That said, at the core of her role in the story and world building is the understanding of what the Quarian pilgrimage is, but also their relationship with their main adversary, the Geth, whom they themselves created centuries earlier. Yet the game wisely focuses on Tali the Quarian, who is also a skilled engineer, rather than focusing too heavily on the Geth-Quarian dynamic, which is explored in future games quite a lot, rather than in this one, where it is less explored. That said, I feel the writers did a good job with Tali, as not only does she give an interesting perspective of events, but also she's at the core of the Geth-Quarian plotline that runs through the trilogy, and then gains traction in the second game.
Hey Commander, you know that Quarian Tali? She's been spending all her time down here asking me about our engines.
I'll tell her to leave you alone.
What? No, she's amazing. I wish my guys were half as smart as she is. Give her a month on board and she'll know more about our engines than I do. She's got a real knack for technology, that one. I can see why you wanted her to come along.
I figured she'd be a real asset to the team.
You got an eye for talent, Commander.
The final member of the team we recruit is the Asari archaeologist Dr. Liara Tassoni, and for her part is the centre of the Prothean side of the story, and her knowledge of this precursor race is key in assisting Shepard. But also she has a personal stake in the story, as her mother, Benezia, is an antagonistic force in the story. As far as world building, her discussions are somewhat annoyingly, in my opinion, focused purely on Asari culture, and always end with innuendo jokes, which can be amusing but get tiresome very quickly. And unfortunately, I feel it is done this way simply because Liara is meant to be sort of the main romance option of the game. You see, this is the issue with Liara in Mass Effect 1. Her conversations, though they are certainly important for world building as far as the Asari are concerned, and I do believe the Asari are a well-designed race in this game, among the other races at least, but her conversations feel like they mostly focus on Liara as Benezia's daughter, or Liara accidentally flirting with Shepard, Liara who always mentions something about Asari procreation. It's amusing, but it does get a bit silly, I find. That is, I feel they should have focused more on her own backstory as a researcher and her literally century-long life so far. Not that she's a bad character, she is a good character, that effectively she misses the nuance of the other Alien Squad members. I get the feeling that her story arc doesn't really start until Mass Effect 2, or more accurately, the expanded Mass Effect universe content prior to Mass Effect 2's release. Aside from squad mates, I feel it is only fair to mention a few crew members who have a notable presence not only in this game, but also throughout the trilogy. The first being Major Dr. Karen Chakwas, normally just Dr. Chakwas to the crew, is a talented medical professional and considered a maverick by her medical colleagues. She was drawn to the romantic imagery of travelling the galaxy, saving wounded soldiers, and experiencing the galaxy, and though the reality was she would face the loss of many friends along the way, Karen has become a wise and deeply welcoming person who tries to do her part to help people in their darkest moments. Alongside Joker, who I will cover next, Dr. Chakwas acts as one of the two consistent humanizing pillars of the Normandy's crew, and she becomes without a doubt one of Shepard's closest friends, and like Joker, never abandoning Shepard even in their darkest hour.
How did you end up serving on an Alliance ship?
I enlisted right out of med school. Earth always seemed boring to me. Too safe, too secure. I figured the colonies were teeming with exotic adventure. I wanted to travel the stars, tending the wounds of tough soldiers with piercing eyes and sensitive souls. Turns out military life isn't quite as romantic as I'd imagined. But humanity needs the Alliance if we want to keep expanding through the Traverse, and the Alliance always needs good doctors. So I stayed on to do my part.
Jeff Moreau, nicknamed Joker, is an Alliance flight lieutenant, helmsman of the Normandy, and considered the most talented pilot in the Alliance Navy. As the pilot of the Normandy, Jeff is regularly in contact with Shepard throughout their adventures, and given the nature of Shepard's covert operations, his guidance regarding deployment and extraction is essential to the team, as well as his skill as a pilot means that on these long covert deployments, the Normandy would otherwise be stranded if not for his skills. On a personal level, Joker also acts as comic relief.
Why does everyone call you Joker?
It's a lot shorter than saying Alliance Flight Lieutenant Jeff Moreau. Plus, I love to make little children laugh.
I was just thinking how much you remind me of Santa Claus.
But also is able to make serious points when required, and ends up proving Zeph Green's great range as a voice actor. Aside from that, Joker also has Vrolic syndrome, or brittle bones disease, and it goes a long way to reinforcing his great character, as the writers managed to include a well-done character with a notable impairment without solely focusing his character on that fact. That is, the way he talks about his condition is done in a way that is, not as with much media, disabling in its wording, and furthermore involves him making it clear that though it is something he must live with and as part of who he is, he will not allow it to define him, and to everyone he meets he is a heroic and noble human being who, without him, the crew would have failed from the start. That is, I love Joker as a character. He's funny, he's interesting, and is a great case study on how I think games should go about dealing with the subject of impairment, as impairment of body or mind does not mean impairment of character or ability.
Look, I didn't pick the name. One of the instructors in flight school used to bug me about never smiling. She started calling me Joker, and it stuck.
Why didn't you ever smile?
Hey, I worked my ass off in flight school, Commander. The world's not gonna hand you anything if you go around grinning like an idiot. By the end of the year, I was the best pilot in the academy, even better than the instructors, and everybody knew it. They'd all got their asses kicked by the sickly kid with the creaky little legs. One guess who was smiling at graduation? Good timing, Commander. I was just about to bring us into the Citadel. See that taxpayer money at work.
Flagship of the Citadel fleet.
Well, size and everything.
Why so touchy, Joker?
I'm just saying you need firepower, too.
Look at that monster. Its main gun could rip through the barriers in any ship in the Alliance fleet.
Good thing it's on our side, then.
Citadel Control, this is SSV Normandy, requesting permission to land.
Stand by for clearance, Normandy. Clearance granted. You may begin your approach. Transfer you to an Alliance operator.
Roger, Alliance Tower. Normandy out.
Normandy, this is Alliance Tower. Please proceed to Dock 422.
I noted in my Halo Infinite video, and the same applies here, if not more, that it is good presentation that is essential to gaming as a storytelling medium. And I don't just mean graphical fidelity, though that does help. Rather, audio, voice work, lighting, scene direction, all can elevate key points of a story. In the case of Mass Effect, its focus on cinematic conversations, cutscenes, but also its inclusion of exploration via the Mako are greatly aided by some great presentation, but at other times hindered by some issues that I will discuss here. On the great side of things, you have greatly improved graphical fidelity, with which the Legendary Edition has made many improvements. These are possibly the most substantial in Mass Effect 1 as regards to the trilogy's overall changes. Lighting is greatly improved with proper contrasts that elevate from the original game's very plastic look. We have far better textures and weapons and armour, as well as some, though not all, environments have also been improved. Link that with a great soundtrack by Jack Wall and Sam Hulick, with additions by Richard Jacques and David Cates, as well as a brilliant credits track by Fonts, and with fantastic voice work across the board being spearheaded by towering performances by Jennifer Hale and Mark Meir. And you have a recipe for stellar quality cutscenes and some very memorable moments. Also, I'd like to point out, and this may be disliked by some, but I love the new squad UI changes, and the little portraits I think look really cool, as well as the general UI changes with some menus, particularly the inventory screen, which is far easier to navigate and find things with, as well as organize. That said, there are a number of issues that show this game's age, such as environmental clutter, which when not used properly can make areas seem very artificial or quickly slapped together. Here's an example of a room I found that literally had no clutter in it whatsoever. can't help but feel the devs maybe forgot to lock the door of this room to make it inaccessible, because there is literally nothing in this room and no missions or anything that take you here. That also brings up my next point, which is about the reuse of assets in many side quest areas. If you've seen one suspect lab complex or abandoned freighter or mine, you have basically seen them all. And what is with all the crate mazes you find? Don't get me wrong, I have played plenty of games with this issue, so it's par for the course in what is easily a 20+ hour game. Nevertheless, it seems this criticism was largely addressed in the sequel, as in that game clutter is greatly improved and the side content has a far greater variety of level types, which I shall discuss more when I cover that game. That said, with that out of the way, we have to then discuss the mixed bag of presentation, which is the Mako planet sections. You see, these areas in Legendary Edition can look great, with some great weather effects at times, as well as some brilliant skyboxes. I mean, look at these examples. They get the diverse weather systems of varied planets that would be required of any good sci-fi universe just right, in my opinion. So those Mako sections can have some great vistas that give a great sense of awe, yet when you look at the ground itself and what's around you, it can be very bland, boring. Not the actual textures, mind you, they're fine, but rather outside of main mission Mako sections, most planets feel like the same mix of randomly placed hills you might expect in an early dev build not meant for public eyes. I mean, where is the vegetation? I mean, I get the Arctic planets not having this and some other planet ecosystems, but clearly garden planets with no trees, bushes, flowers, nothing, that shouldn't really be a thing. It's little details like that that human beings only notice when they're gone, that they are key to environment design, and here it can be quite glaring with their absence. That's not to say I hate this, I just really shrug at it, as I get this is a game that came out just after the PlayStation 2 Xbox era came to an end, where games couldn't normally manage lots of vegetation in environments of this size, or rather that the engines of the time were not always built with this kind of thing in mind. I also would like to quickly mention some of the weird things I noticed with audio in this game. That being, music volume can be all over the place, particularly in some cutscenes. The music can be so loud that it makes it difficult to hear the NPCs talking. It's rare, but it does happen. Second, the layered music used to punctuate some cutscenes or sort of revealing enemy scenes seem to be layered over the normal audio in the game, so you can't even change the settings on this.
Let's check the other claws. Damn things can't be perfect.
It just seems like the sounds are low quality in these scenes, and it can happen quite often. It's not a huge issue, but I do notice it every time. And I was thinking why they did it this way. Also, I'd like to point out that the dreaded Mass Effect pop-in, with textures in particular, though almost completely removed with modern hardware in this game, did appear once or twice for me. And I know it's the game because I know my GPU and my SSD are more than fast enough to load textures fast in any game up to 4K quite easily. That said, literally, I only noticed this twice, so I feel like it's more like a nice little Easter egg more than anything. That reminds me of the horrendous pop-in that was the original Mass Effect release. With all that said, Mass Effect 1 has some great improvements to its visuals, and the cutscenes are still a feast for the ears and now the eyes, particularly with Shepard in the right lighting looking pretty cool. And I did find myself liking the armors a lot more playing it this time, as I hated the textures for the armors back in the day. They always looked a bit like they were made of Play-Doh or something. While the music has always been great, so enough said, and the epic moments in this game still feel epic. And as far as I'm concerned, despite some issues with the remaster, by getting that stuff right, it did its job, and so credit to the devs who updated the classic game's presentation. Though my experience with Mass Effect Legendary Edition was almost completely smooth without any major issues to speak of, there were still a few things I noticed through my playthroughs. There was a few sound bugs alongside what I mentioned in the presentation section about audio, with sound cutting out at least twice on Ferrum, requiring a reload to fix it. Sometimes companions' voices in conversations would get really quiet. I noticed this with some of Garrus's conversations. And I noticed that Rex at one point was speaking very fast in a scene towards the end of the game. On the other hand, I had some turrets bug out and refuse to shoot at the Mako and bringing the sky down. The combat scanner mod that you can get on certain weapons would bug out sometimes and just not work. Maybe it's me, but I just noticed it wasn't working a lot of the time. On Nevaria, there's like a checkpoint attack against some NPCs, and the Rachni that are meant to appear there got stuck because Liara used a singularity, and for whatever reason it trapped them in the void beneath the map, and I could see them on the radar, but they literally just wouldn't spawn up on the map, so that was amusing. I also had Garrus and Rex bug out and just stay put and refuse to follow any commands once, which you can see here. Regarding crashes and freeze-ups, I had 3 freeze-ups and 2 crashes over 40 hours of playing multiple campaigns. As far as performance, I had solid 60 frames at all times, except with a few planets where first landing in the Mako, there would be like a frame rate drop of about 30 seconds or so before it stabilized. It tended to be like snow planets, so I assume it's weather effects or something. Noting that my system specs while playing this game were my 2060 Super graphics card along with a 10th generation i5 processor. Hence, no real major issues with the game regards to its performance bugs and issues, just a few little things, a lot of them which were, as I recall, in the original game, so that is what it is. I would expect them to be fixed in a remaster, but there is. They are, of course, minor.
First Prime relay is in range. Initiating transmission sequence.
Commander?
We are connected. Calculating transit mass and destination. The relay is hot. Acquiring approach vector. All stations secure for transit. Board is green. Approach run has begun. Hitting the relay in 3, 2, 1.
Just to clarify, this section will involve spoiler discussion of Mass Effect 1, and though I will try to avoid spoilers involving the follow-up games, it is inevitable that there will be some both implied and explicit spoilers, where I feel it is necessary to understand the qualities of this game's story as the foundational entry in the series. There will thus be timestamps below in the description, so for those who want to skip the spoilers to get to the spoiler-free sections, there will be links there. There are a few points of the story that I think are important to discuss, those being Shepard as a Spectre, Saren, Virmire, Illos, and the Battle of the Citadel, as well as the inclusion of Cerberus in this game.
We won't be dragged into a galactic confrontation over a few dozen human colonies.
I can take Saren down.
The commander's right. There is a way to stop Saren that doesn't require fleets or armies.
No, it's too soon. Humanity is not ready for the responsibilities that come with joining the Spectres.
You don't have to send a fleet into the Traverse, and the ambassador gets his human Spectre. Everybody's happy.
Commander Shepard, step forward. It is the decision of the Council that you be granted all the powers and privileges of the Special Tactics and Reconnaissance branch of the Citadel.
Spectres are not trained, but chosen. Individuals forged in the fire of service and battle. Those whose actions elevate them above the rank and file.
Spectres are an ideal, a symbol, the embodiment of courage, determination, and self-reliance. They are the right hand of the Council, instruments of our will.
Spectres bear a great burden. They are protectors of galactic peace, both our first and last line of defense. The safety of the galaxy is theirs to uphold.
You are the first human Spectre, Commander. This is a great accomplishment for you and your entire species.
I'm honored, Counselor.
We're sending you into the Traverse after Saren. He's a fugitive from justice, so you are authorized to use any means necessary to apprehend or eliminate him.
I'll find him.
This meeting of the Council is adjourned.
Congratulations, Commander.
We've got a lot of work to do, Shepard. You're going to need a...
Starting with the iconic Spectre induction scene, Commander Shepard is giving the so-called powers and privileges associated with the Special Tactics and Reconnaissance branch of the Citadel. In other words, you have complete immunity to any and all laws and regulations, and only can be held accountable if the Council revokes your status.
That's far enough.
I'm on important business.
This is an unscheduled arrival. I need your credentials.
All you need to know is I have more credentials than you.
They plan to be trouble, ma'am.
I can't let you enter the port area without confirmation of your identity. Sergeant Sterling, secure their weapons.
Citadel authority supersedes yours.
Nobody takes my weapon.
Charge and lock! We are authorized to use lethal force. You have to the count of 3 to surrender your weapons. 1, 2, 3.
Captain Matsuo, stand down! We confirmed their identity. Spectres are authorized to carry weapons here, Captain.
You may proceed, Spectre. I hope the rest of your visit will be less confrontational.
Seriously, Spectres are a legal and political theorist's nightmare, and brings to mind the quote by Lord Acton that you might be familiar with. Quote, "Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Great men are almost always bad men." End quote. I think that quote perfectly captures the Paragon Renegade concept of the Spectres. As with Shepard, there are times where a pragmatic or easy solution involves a morally reprehensible act. Therefore, here I would like to discuss a few examples in the game where this idea comes to the fore. Regarding the interview and the ship inspection scenes, these are cases which can happen one after the other, as it so happens, and show less about consequence but more about how Shepard perceives themselves, the world around them, and how they view the concept of power. That is, Paragon Shepard clearly believes the idea that a man without friends is a man without power. That is, diplomacy and appealing to people on a personalized level gets results, maintains integrity, and encourages cooperation now and in the future, and garners respect. While the Renegade options are about a very different view of power, the more Machiavellian style in which they see the Paragon's desire to base power on the impulse of love or admiration of one's actions is foolish, and rather, quote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved, because love is preserved by a link of obligation, owing to the baseness of men is broken at every opportunity for their advantage. But fear preserves you by a dread of punishment which never fails." End quote. In other words,
given your recent experiences, do you think humanity will ever get the respect it deserves from the galactic community?
Ever read Machiavelli? He believed it's better to be feared than loved. We build a few dozen more dreadnoughts, I guarantee we'll be respected.
Hence, the Renegade options demonstrate a need to project hard power, military might, strength of will, dominance, the might of humanity, and Shepard's belief that they bow to no authority but their own. The comparison between the alignments is one of the best parts of Mass Effect, not always in the varied outcomes, which there can be, but rather that both views of power have merit, and often both can resolve a situation without killing, whether it is through love or fear. That is, these two events do a great job of demonstrating this, as the tone of both Shepard and the responses they get change notably. As with the interview, you even get different reactions from Admiral Hackett, a high-ranking member of the Alliance Navy, making his more Paragon view quite obvious.
Commander, Ms. Al-Jalani's story on you just aired. I don't agree with everything you said, but at least you got her on your side. I just hope it doesn't damage relations with the Council.
I just told her what she wanted to hear, sir.
Convenient for you, but our allies may not think the same. Just wanted to let you know what the response was back home. Commander Miss Al-Jalani's story on you just aired. She shouldn't have ambushed you like that, but you handled it pretty well.
We had differences of opinion, sir. I hope she at least believed my sincerity.
You handled yourself pretty well, Commander. She came across like a raving idiot. Just wanted to let you know what the response was back home.
On the flip side, the ship inspection by a clearly more isolationist admiral of the Alliance, we see Shepard able to parry his criticisms expertly, with Paragon Shepard noting the value of the Alliance maintaining a good relationship with its allies and learning from the older races, while Renegade Shepard goes as far as quoting military history and chastising the Admiral as narrow-minded in his view of the Normandy's potential.
I had to shake my head at that drive core of yours. 120 billion credits of element 0 to make this thing able to move without giving itself away. You realize we could make drive cores for 12,000 fighters with that money? What good is it to hide for a few hours anyway? Useless.
Men of limited vision said the same thing about early aircraft, submarines, and tanks.
There's two ways I could take that, Commander, but that is true. I suppose the early U-boats weren't much better.
And going full lawful alignment by quoting regulations that give Shepard the authority to choose their crew as they see fit. That is, contrary to popular belief, Renegade Shepard is not simply a wisecracking loose cannon, though they get plenty of those options. They have a ruthless intellect and can be as much lawful evil or lawful neutral as chaotic in their dealings, and they are ultimately a cold pragmatist.
Torfin was retaliation for your attack on Elysium. You pushed, we pushed back.
Enough! There are rumors on the extranet that you've been made the first human Spectre. That's incredible!
Being a Spectre is a big responsibility. I just want to make humanity proud.
The vids are all talking about Commander Shepard fighting for all of us back home. And they also say that you don't take crap from anybody. You're showing them what humans can do.
Shepard, at last.
Have we met?
Who do you think runs the Terminus clan, Shepard, huh? Thousands of pirates, slavers, criminals of every stripe?
You assume I give a damn. That's cute.
I used my influence to assemble a fleet. We would drive your kind out of the Verge.
You organized the attack on Elysium. You want me to thank you for my Star of Terra?
Goodbye, Shepard.
What do we do now, Shepard?
We find a way out. Someone up there needs my boot up his ass.
Alright, we just need to find this creature and determine what it... This was not covered by my training manuals.
Nothing's ever simple, is it?
You are within and before the Thorian. It commands that you be in awe.
You enslaved the colonists. You destroyed their minds. I don't know what Saren wanted with you, but I just want you dead.
First we knew the bastards were clawing into my command post. We had a lot more staff then.
I'm packing fire and steel. They want to fight with claws and teeth, it's their funeral.
You got my support.
Activate the neutron purge.
I'm sorry, but I can't do that without proper code authorization.
Sic semper
That is not the correct code. Please report to security for arrest and interrogation.
Damn it! Tell me what I want or I'll blast your virtual ass into actual dust!
Please contact your supervisor for a level 4 security exemption, or make an appointment with...
Stupid machine! Surrender. Or don't. That would be more fun.
We don't have time to deal with this idiot. Charge!
I like your attitude.
There's no escape this time, Doctor. I'd harvest your organs first, but we don't have the time.
You're crazy. He's crazy! Please, don't let him do this to me.
Put him out of his misery so we can get going.
Gladly. Your days of butchering are over, Doctor.
No! Please! Please!
That was satisfying. You Hanar deserve what you get. You're either too snobbish or too stupid to follow simple rules. This one will obey. It does not wish to prejudice others.
Hey there, sweetheart. You looking for some fun?
I'd rather drink a cup of acid after chewing on a razor blade.
You trying to hurt my feelings? You gotta do better than that. After 20 years with C-Sec, I've been called every name in the book, princess.
Call me princess again and you'll be picking your teeth up off the floor. Terriers.
Barak! Check! Check! Release the Baron! You're almost more trouble than you're worth.
I'm just getting started.
They say you killed more than 100 Geth on Eden Prime.
They say a lot of things. I was too busy killing them to count.
This This has been an impressive diversion, Shepard. My Geth were utterly convinced the Salarians were the real threat. Of course, it was all for nothing. I can't let you disrupt what I've accomplished here. You can't possibly understand what's really at stake.
Sovereign and its kind destroyed the Protheans. What else is there to understand?
You've seen the vision from the beacons, Shepard. You of all people should understand what the Reapers are capable of. They cannot be stopped. Do not mire yourself in pointless revolt. Do not sacrifice everything for the sake of petty freedoms. The Protheans tried to fight, and they were utterly destroyed. Trillions dead. But what if they had bowed before the invaders? Would the Protheans still exist? Is submission not preferable to extinction?
I'd rather die than live under the rule of those machines.
With regards to Saren, he is the core antagonist for the majority of the game before the revelations about Sovereign. And we see a character who starts as a cookie-cutter villain at the start of the game. That is, I find Saren getting into a rage when Shepard accesses the Eden Prime Prothean beacon, and then his taunting of Shepard during the council meeting to be cliche low points of his character. They do the job, but they are nothing special as far as villains go. Yet from that point, for me, it is an upward trajectory for his character arc. It's like the writers simply wanted an easily marketable villain to start with, that then evolves over the course of the game. And in fact, even Shepard only understands Saren as more than just a basic villain towards the latter section of the game, as they gain more information about his motivations. To me, this is how good antagonists can be done. They start opposed to the protagonist, but gradually gain layers of character as the plot proceeds, allowing us to sympathize with why they do the things they do. And Saren is a great example of this. That is, Saren is still true to his role as a Spectre throughout the game, even though he loses his way. With that, throw in the always interesting concept of indoctrination, and you have a villain who gets in over his head and gradually makes way for the true villain, which is Sovereign. Yet by allowing it to play into the morality system as well, and have Shepard appeal to Saren with an understanding that he made a mistake and is ultimately not a monster, his suicide at the end of the game, which is a surprise when you first see it, but given the build-up since Virmire and what we learn about Sovereign, it does make sense, and unlike many other villains in media, doesn't give us whiplash by feeling out of character. That said, I feel it was lessened by the obligatory reanimated Saren boss battle at the end, which feels out of place and goes against one of the best aspects of Mass Effect and RPGs in general, which is resolving issues without always leading to a fight, but through dialogue. That said, there is a reason to point to Saren as a how-to guide on creating compelling villains, and I think he was a surprise, but a welcome one in the end, who helps set up the saga's true villains without being overshadowed by them.
Maybe you're right. Maybe there is still a chance for the implants. Sovereign is too strong. I'm sorry. It is too late for me.
There's still one way to stop this, if you've got the guts.
Goodbye, Shepard. Thank you.
Of course, with any discussion of Saren, you inevitably have to then discuss the events of Virmire, which act as the first climax in the story before we enter the end run, as it were. Virmire boils down to what I see as 4 core events. So you have Rex and the Krogan, Sovereign, the Reaper, and the revelations of them, the Caden Alenko and Ashley Williams decision, and the Saren confrontation. So the mission starts with the usual part Mako, part gunplay sections until we approach the Solarian base camp, and it appears to be mostly generic mission fare, yet with the realization of what the facility is for, it complicates things, and if you manage to speak to Rex about his family, the Krogan and the Genophage, it allows the world building of that to feed into the importance of Rex's standpoint here. We see a Rex who's on the edge as he sees the possibility of turning his people's future around laid out before him, and it is up to Shepard to decide how to handle Rex. Depending on alignment, Shepard can resolve this peacefully through the different arguments that Rex acknowledges, whether they be Paragon or Renegade, though it ultimately boils down to Shepard saying that the Krogan must gain the Genophage cure on their own terms, or they will always be pawns of people like Saren. That said, you can choose to ignore the classic red or blue choices and either outright kill Rex yourself or allow Ashley Williams to do so.
All you need to know is that I'm giving you an order to fall in line.
So that's it. All this time, and that's all I get from you. How can you not see what this means to the Krogan? This base can't be destroyed. I won't allow it.
Commander, are you all right?
No, I'm not. I can't believe he'd turn on us.
What happened?
I just couldn't reason with him. He wasn't gonna let us take out the base.
Damn. I know he was angry. I just didn't think he'd lose his life over it.
Better him than the commander.
Yeah, I suppose.
And though in this game it appears to be the only main consequences that you lose a powerful follower in that of Rex, there are substantial consequences in Mass Effect 2 and 3 regarding his death and how it relates to the Krogan's future, which I won't spoil here. Hence it's a cool moment that brings Rex's plot in Mass Effect 1 together. That said, given a committed Renegade or Paragon can avoid killing him quite easily, I feel the intended outcome here is to not kill him, and thus be the beginning of what ends up being a very interesting story arc both for Rex and the Krogan. However, Rex was just the starting point of this mission's twists. Next you choose to send either Caden or Ashley with the Solarians team that you've just met. It ultimately doesn't matter which, just that the interactions with the Solarian team change the name they refer to based on who you chose. I do like that there are little side objectives to assist the Solarians here, allowing you to roleplay the sort of renegade who sees allies as disposable fodder for the mission, and the goody two-shoes Paragon helping them at your own expense. Ultimately, it's not a morality locked thing, rather it feels implied. That said, there is a consequence in that the head of the team, that is Captain Kirahe, can survive or die depending on what you do here. Yet it is once you are through the base that you meet Sovereign, who to this point was just a powerful ship used by Saren, but is actually one of these semi-mythical Reapers we have heard a lot about to this point in the story. Ultimately, it is an interesting little interaction that you have with this true antagonist of the story. Though some of the things said here by Sovereign and Shepard about the Reapers are obviously retconned in future games, such as the belief that Reapers are inorganic machines, which turns out to be false, even though Sovereign never denies the label of machine. It's a minor thing ultimately, but it does show that at this point the writers were still working on how they were going to deal with the Reaper question, which becomes more obvious in Mass Effect 2.
What is that? Off in the distance.
It's a ship. Look at the size of it.
That said, shout out to whoever decided that the Reaper aesthetic should clearly be Cthulhu, H.P. Lovecraft style creature of the deep. As far as I'm concerned, it was a home run, and the sound design also for the loud noise the Reapers make was a great choice, and it does truly give an overworldly terror feel to it.
It showed up right before the attack. Knew it was trouble the second I saw it, so we made a break for the sheds.
What else can you tell me about the ship you saw?
I was too busy running to get a clear look at it. I think it landed over near the spaceport.
Tell them about the noise, Cole. That awful noise.
It was emitting some kind of signal as it descended. It sounded like the shriek of the damned. Only it was coming from inside your own head.
Then comes the choice of the so-called Virmire survivor. That is, who will be the Virmire survivor as the mission parameters change once again. Shepard is forced to decide between Ashley and Kaidan, with the other dying as a result of that decision. I always saw the decision that is to be between two Alliance human squad mates to be the correct one, as forcing a death on the alien companions would have definitely been a controversial thing in hindsight, given how popular the alien squad mates became with the fanbase, and with Kaidan and Ashley regrettably, to my mind, being the weakest members of the team, due to the fact that they are a familiar thing in a setting that thrives on unfamiliar things, which is the heart of good sci-fi in my mind. Yet between this and the Rex standoff, it sets the tone not just for the remainder of Game 1, but also the reality that in Mass Effect no character truly gets unassailable plot armor, something few games show. That said, the degree varies, as we shall see when I discuss particular Mass Effect 2 decision points. However, it is a memorable moment and does resonate with the Virmire survivor's view of Shepard, though not apparent until Game 3. That said, the Virmire survivor is, for most players, the second casualty under Shepard's command at this point, and it won't be the last. Finally, for Virmire, we then have the confrontation with Saren. I'm not talking about the fight section itself, but rather the dialogue between the new Spectre and that of Shepard and the disgraced Saren. It is a moment of the game with the knowledge of Sovereign and what Benezia tells us about indoctrination. It is this moment where I feel Saren as a character and not just as a villain really comes together. It is here we can finally understand his motivation. It is not to destroy humanity out of spite or bring galactic annihilation, but rather a hopeless attempt to limit the devastation of the Reapers, to naively but no less genuinely save as many organics from genocide as he can, by collaborating with the enemy in the hopes of better treatment. He is of course wrong, but you can tell his concern is genuine, as Shepard is able to sow some doubt in his mind, and ultimately I think it is between this and his dialogue on the Citadel that ground him as a sad but relatable villain who failed in his duty, his failing being making a deal with the devil he didn't truly know or understand.
I'm not doing this for myself.
Don't you see? Sovereign will succeed. It is inevitable. My way is the only way any of us will survive. I'm forging an alliance between us and the Reapers, between organics and machines. And in doing so, I will save more lives than have ever existed.
Anderson, what are you doing here? I didn't send...
Get us out of here, Joker. Now!
Aside from Virmire, another crucial and brilliant piece of world building is that of Illos, and more specifically, Vigil. I think simply hearing that name, any fans of Mass Effect will instantly think of the classic soundtrack piece that is, and has become, iconic in representing both Game 1 but also Mass Effect as a whole.
Decades, but I have never felt this sense of foreboding. What will we find down there?
Whatever we find, be cautious. If this were simply an automated trap, Saren would have triggered it as well.
Regardless, Vigil is a treasure trove of information and effectively allows the writers to give Shepard some crucial information as to the true scale and nature of the threat that the galaxy faces, and records just how horrible a Reaper invasion is in the case of the Protheans, as even if Shepard fails to prevent the use of the Citadel by Sovereign, it would possibly take centuries for the Reapers to cut off all systems and slowly and systematically wipe out organic life, with the denizens of the galaxy not even knowing what's happening. It does a good job of resolving the questions relating to the mass relays and their usage, as despite being central to such a galaxy-spanning civilization and its prosperity, I find it interesting the idea that society or civilization's development could be controlled and manipulated for such a dark purpose without those societies even being aware of it. It's quite terrifying. With that, we see Illos effectively settles down the groundwork of what's going on with both the Protheans in the past but also the Reapers now, and becomes essential for understanding the story as it develops.
The arms aren't moving. System's not responding.
Abandon the Citadel! Evacuate the Council!
Citadel Control! Citadel Control, do you copy?
When you first see the Citadel in all its glory, you know it's meant to act as a hub of sorts, with quests, shops, and the exploration of the political side of the story, as well as world building happening there. It is a key part of the first game, and hosts several important events, such as becoming a Spectre, meeting many characters that we will see throughout the series, and many side quests at the core of the world building, and of course the epic conclusion of the game in that of the Battle of the Citadel. To me, the battle consists of three main parts. First is the opening of the battle and Shepard fighting their way to the council chambers. Second is the confrontation with Saren, then the arrival of the Alliance 5th Fleet that then either saves the council flagship with the council on board or sacrifices it to focus on Sovereign alone. Then the final stage is Shepard's aforementioned fight with the Sovereign-controlled Saren, leading to the destruction of Sovereign at the hands of the 5th Fleet, and also leading to a number of things in the epilogue scene. The first stage is straightforward enough with no decisions to speak of, but is a cool set piece with Sovereign being visible in the distance at all times. The second is where decisions come to the fore, with the Saren confrontation I noted earlier having different options and reactions depending on what you said to him on Virmire, and also the choice on how to use the Alliance fleet, which comes after this. That is, there is no right or wrong answer here, but it does change how many characters view humanity in the future, with even the second game's Codex entries also changing to match the change in tone, with Shepard also being able to reference the outcome during the game. That is, saving the Council leads to a great deal of respect on humanity's part, while letting the Council perish makes humanity stronger, but leads many to believe that they are angling to become the hegemonic power in Council space.
I hope you know what you're doing, human. Don't let the Council die in vain.
All Alliance ships, hold formation. Wait for a shot at Sovereign. Nothing else matters. I repeat, nothing else matters.
Picking up reinforcements.
It's the Alliance. Open a comm channel. This is the Ascension. We're taking heavy damage. Guardian defenses are over. Kinetic barriers are offline.
Commander, they closed the channel.
Then leads nicely into the last part, which concludes the story with Sovereign's defeat and the Council and humanity, or simply humanity, taking stock of what just happened in the epilogue, with the music, the scene, and the lighting changing based on your alignment, and who you speak to obviously changing depending on your decisions.
One we can never repay. You saved not just our lives, but the lives of billions from Sovereign and the Reapers.
Commander Shepard, your heroic and selfless actions serve as a symbol of everything humanity and the Alliance stand for.
And though we cannot bring back those valiant soldiers who gave their lives to save ours, we can honor their memories through our actions.
Humanity has shown it is ready to stand as a defender and protector of the galaxy. You have proved you are worthy to join our ranks and serve beside us on the Citadel Council. The Council also owes you a great personal debt, Commander, one we can never repay. By defeating Sovereign, you have saved billions of lives. You have the courage of your convictions and a ruthless determination to succeed. Through your actions, you have become a symbol of everything humanity represents.
Commander Shepard did the right thing. We had to hold our fleet back to go after Sovereign. It was the only way.
I agree.
But this also presents us with an opportunity. The Citadel fleets were decimated in the attack. Their losses have made the Alliance stronger. They can't rebuild without us. We need to take the lead in forming a new council, one with a human chairman at its head.
I like the different tones, and that even if a renegade Shepard chooses to save the council, it still refers to Shepard and humanity with different wording and tone, as opposed to more Paragon-aligned Shepards. All in all, I like how the Battle of the Citadel was handled. It has notable changes on the follow-up games, and with the view of Shepard's conduct here and how many characters going forward view humanity, it makes it feel like it's a very important event in the Mass Effect universe, with the follow-up game doing well to demonstrate also the concept of the entropy of victory, as everything Shepard stirred up is undone by those who had once respected Shepard, and forcing Shepard to continue the fight by making a deal with the devil, or more appropriately, with Hades.
Alliance ships, move in. Save the Destiny Ascension.
Commander, we're picking up reinforcements.
It's the Alliance. Thank the goddess.
Commander, just came in over a secure channel.
Shepard, this is Admiral Kahoku. I found out who set that trap for my men. The ones killed by the Thresher Moor. Damn, I hope you get this message. It was a group called Cerberus. An Alliance Black Ops organization. Top secret, highest level security clearance. They vanished a few months ago. Dropped right off the grid. Nobody knew where they went or what they were up to. They've gone completely rogue, Shepard. They're conducting illegal genetic experiments, trying to create some kind of super soldier. I don't have any proof, but I found the coordinates for one of their research worlds. I'm uploading them with this message. They're completely out of control. Somebody needs to stop them. I've done my part. Now it's up to you.
The final piece of spoiler discussion I would like to delve into is that relating to the inclusion of Cerberus in this game. It is strange because most players might not be fully aware of Cerberus in this game, as a lot of what they are involved in is relegated to side content. And as such, they have a far larger presence than you may expect, which ends up feeding heavily into the second entry in this trilogy for obvious reasons. So we have an organization which is experimenting on, and deep breath here, turning colonists into husks, taking Rachni from Noveria only to lose control and cause a system-wide crisis.
Cerberus. Is that a corporation?
Play the second entry.
The package arrived today for field testing. I'm told they're fundamentally similar to the units being developed on Noveria. They promised this batch would be stable. Something about them developing in proximity to the Master Control Unit. We detected some pirates setting up an anchorage in a neighboring system. I think we'll try deploying them there first.
Play the last entry.
They've escaped containment. Clever bastards. We treated them like animals. We should have treated them like POWs. They're spreading. Boarding the supply ships and sending them to random destinations. They'll be all over the cluster in a week. General, if you recover this message, my advice is, screw the Rachni. They're too smart. Use one of the other projects. Flores, signing off. For the final time.
This is a familiar story. A failed experiment with the Rachni. Nice to see humans are consistently stupid.
Experimented on Thorian creepers in collaboration with Exogeny, who also helped them get their hands on the husk spikes.
We've been trapped in this room for days. We're almost out of food and water. You got here just in time.
I need to know what's going on. Why is this place crawling with Thorian creepers?
How do you know about the Thorian?
I know what Exogeny was up to. I saw what they let the Thorian do to those colonists, so I destroyed it.
Our secret's out then. No point in my lying. You already know the worst. The creepers here were created using altered samples from the specimens on Pharos. We discovered a way to turn them into docile, obedient servants.
Then leading Alliance Marines to be killed by Thresher Maws, and then injecting said Thresher Maws poison into a survivor of said accident, and kidnapping and then killing an Alliance Admiral. Yeah, they're not a nice bunch here, and with Shepard thwarting them in this game, it makes his relationship with Cerberus in the second game all the more interesting in my opinion. When I first played this game, I assumed Cerberus were meant to be some kind of second-rate, hopeless, incompetent set of bad guys relegated to side content, though how wrong I was, well, Game 3 notwithstanding, though we will get to that discussion when we cover that game, I can assure you. Regardless, I really like the inclusion of Cerberus in this game, and it does wonders to build up in preparation for the second game's shift in tone from the Mass Effect 1 style focus on hope and forcing the antagonists into the light, as it were, and Mass Effect 2's more ambiguous view of the galaxy and fighting a covert war in the shadows and with alliances of convenience. As I have said previously, Bioware's leap into creating their own sci-fi universe was a big risk for the company and had no guarantee of success. Yet the combination of what were in many cases very experimental ideas led to what is considered a great triumph of the sci-fi and RPG genres. Its music, its characters, the cinematic conversations, and all of its memorable moments culminated in Mass Effect 1 with the creation of a new kind of sci-fi experience. Yet it did have some missteps, and it is clear looking at Mass Effect 2 the developers understood this and worked to focus the experience on what made Mass Effect 1 so loved. Ultimately, it is a fascinating game that dipped into a variety of concepts from other proven genres, but also sought to carve its own niche in the gaming space, of which it succeeded in cultivating a loyal fan base that play the game to this day. Originally, when they announced the Legendary Edition, I wasn't sure I would play it. I thought, what is the point of dedicating another 100+ hours to a franchise if it's just a remaster? Yet, how wrong I was, as soon as I booted up Mass Effect 1, the game was able to hook me once again, and when I finished my first playthrough, I immediately booted up the sequel and then the third game following that, even though I already knew how it ended, and it led me to think that despite how one might think of how the ending of the trilogy was handled, it is the journey that this game starts in a superb form ended up being one of the greatest sci-fi epics in the history of the genre, and captivates its audience with a great tale of heroism, sacrifice, and ultimately the friendship that its main character shares with a host of brilliantly written characters. That is, to me, the core of a good Bioware game is not its gameplay, it's not its cinematic moments, it's not even its progression systems, but it is the in-between moments, the stories told between characters, and the emotional resonance that they bring. For me personally, this game that is the origins of the legendary Commander Shepard is still possibly one of my favourite gaming origin stories, and has stood the test of time, not due to a nostalgia of what was, but rather that it is now I understand those core elements of a Bioware game I mentioned have made this game what it is, and I look forward to demonstrate that despite their flaws, the other entries in this trilogy still manage to understand these elements. That is, regarding my future content related to Mass Effect, I will be covering the rest of the trilogy in the Legendary Edition, and I will eventually cover Andromeda as well. In the meantime, I will be starting up a Mass Effect Let's Play to go along with this video for those who are interested. That said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please have a lovely day, and thanks for watching.